Hi, welcome to Cannabis Talk with the 420 Realtor. This is
Heidi.
I'm Joe, and we're here to talk about cannabis, real estate, and what's going on in the two markets between New Jersey and New York. So what's going on in Jersey?
Whew. In Jersey, it's a little bit crazy. Every day things are changing. You have to really be inside the cannabis real estate game to know what's happening in every single town. I don't know if you're listening to any of the news that's happening in Jersey. Jersey City just had a huge meeting and had to stop applications because people are literally next door to each other. You need to have some distance and some space, and nobody forethought that that might happen during this application process. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of people looking for space. There's people getting approved, but no one can open their doors, and it's a shit show. I hear it's happening in New York also.
Yeah, New York is, at this point, very far behind, in my opinion, where New Jersey is at. Just because of all the miscommunications between, leaders, the community, and trying to get things done on a quicker. I guess everybody was trying to do a quick, something quick, and it's definitely a shit show right now.
But I mean, the stuff that came this morning from the mayor was a little bit crazy.
Yeah, whatever it was 3 months ago, where he's saying, "Oh, we're not going to be heavy-handed," and all this stuff, and that he didn't realize that things were going to get into a situation that we're in where we have 1,400 illegal locations operating. It's going to be a hard thing to wrangle that in, but as far as the idea with we want to use this law to try to push people out to their landlords, I'm just not sure if that's going to be a thing, because there's so many. That's just, well, landlords want to put themselves in that in a third party in the middle of that. As if I was a landlord, I would want to.
Yeah, but then they're threatening like legal action against the landlord. That's what's scary, right? The wording that they chose to use is kind of like, but you can't really force anyone to do anything.
Right. Like, as far as it being, a legal thing now, it's not like you can go to a landlord and say, we're going to put you in jail if you don't comply. They can try to do fines, but
What's the head on a lot?
yeah, I mean, to fine that many landlords and not expect a pushback, I don't know if that's going to be a thing. And these, there is leases in place that I've seen personally where, it says for cannabis use. So to try to come in as a landlord, if you're going to be able to say, okay, go to court, I want to evict these people, but I have a lease that says they can do this on my premises. What legal standing, like, where does that put the landlord?
And so it's the opposite for us. There's no wording there for cannabis on purpose, because if they're trying to get into that market, you know what I mean? So it's very touch and go for us there. There are legacy people who have spots who never intended to get a license, so that the word cannabis doesn't show up at all anywhere. And then there's people who do intend and know that when they're licensed, and that's what the lease says, it'll change at that point. Like, we're going to rewrite this.
Right.
But yeah, to have the word there scares the crap out of me.
I was surprised because a lot of landlords were actually requesting that. And I think maybe foreshadowing this, they were thinking, their attorneys were thinking, well, if it's worded in the lease, it's out there.
Right. Because Jersey doesn't have this law. This
law was enacted, I think, in the early 90s. And it was for other stuff. I think it was more for like, being able to control other things. Obviously back then they weren't thinking people were going to open up cannabis shops on the street.
Right.
But I don't think I've never heard, as a real estate agent in New York, I don't think I've ever heard it actually used, like, as someone enforcing it.
That's one of the things that's crazy about New Jersey, that because we're realtors, the laws are usually in place. And now we're working with new laws as they make them as they go. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's backwards than what. So people really don't even understand what it is to get into it until they're in it. And then what do you do, right? Like, you're looking for the space and you really don't know the rules. Then you try to figure out the rules and you're ass backwards.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what they're getting into in this business until they get into it. Everybody thinks, you're going to come in and, I'm going to open a cannabis shop and I want to be, a multimillionaire in 12 months.
Yeah.
It's definitely not that. currently. And in the future, could it be? Yes, but I don't. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially in New York City, to get it to a point to where people are actually going to be making good money off of it, making generational wealth. And as far as what's going on with the car licenses and how that whole situation is unfolding too, where this was supposed to be for people that, excuse me, that are, were underprivileged and hurt by these laws, and now it's kind of turned into where it's working against them. So, and with the money, with the funding, as we found out last week, isn't there. So there's a lot to work out. And there should also be like educational classes for people, because a lot of people that are just now getting into the cannabis business were in business before, or had a business experience to know about LLCs and things of that nature. I've had a lot of clients that, I had to teach them as we went along, like, what you need to do to establish a business and to be a real legal established business. And it's,
I think that's why there's so many people who don't realize what else you have to do to kind of help your client in a legal way. And it's a different mindset for both your client and the realtor who's never had to do that before, right?
And you got to be very careful, especially in New York, because if you give the wrong, there's things you can say and you can't say, and you got to kind of sometimes hint them towards the direction of where they need to go without saying something to put yourself in a kind of legal jeopardy.
It's almost in one of my buyer questionnaires, right? Or tenant questionnaires, how far along are you in the process? Because if depending on where you are, you may need to be led in a whole different direction, like legal, just different people before we even get to the real estate. People just think, oh, I want a cannabis store. Let me call a realtor and say, hey, let me find. No, you have to talk. There's certain steps we have to do. So people don't recognize that. They just think, okay, I have some cash. Let me see how I can get involved.
Right.
And then when they realize a lot of people aren't sure and they reach me, they're like, why are these questions being asked? I've never gotten this before. And it's not pushback. It's just because the process is so, done the way that it's done. You have to kind of figure it out how you can help them properly. You know what I mean? And some of the realtors don't understand, creating those LLCs and what the things that you need to get to that point.
Yeah, and it's especially, I think, with, realtors that haven't, or first time dealing with a cannabis. I know when I do a lot of co-brokes with my clients, I have to kind of prep the other agent who hasn't dealt with cannabis before, and let them know of, this is obviously, they're getting more and more educated, other agents that noticed. When I first started doing it, there was no one doing this. And I had to learn by just doing it. And there was no book, there was no one to teach me how to do cannabis real estate, which is a different type of real estate. And especially then when, you're in a situation where you want to help somebody. And, when I first started doing this, obviously this wasn't legal. As far as selling cannabis. So when you go into a landlord and you're saying, hey, this is, what we want to do, what can we do here? It's hard. It's tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who cannot have that conversation. But the thing is if you can, there's a lot more people open to it than you think. It's just everyone has to understand what they're getting into.
Right. And I think I noticed in the last year was when kind of things changed in the mindset of landlords.
Totally.
They were coming and saying, landlords that laughed in the past, or or whatever. Those are the same people that are calling me saying, hey, just have clients that need space, especially right after COVID when things were dead and there was no space, there was spaces everywhere at the time. But at those times, the landlords were just according to what the governor is saying, we can go ahead and do this.
Yeah, that we're opposite of that right now. Right now, there's no place to put these lights.
Yeah, and that's created the other problem where, obviously all the good spots are taken now, right, for the most part. So there's a shortage of
within a 2-year window, right? That's the
change,
the flip, and that's what people don't see. How insane it can be in such a short amount of time. as you're creating new laws.
But yeah, there's going to be steps that are going to, I guess, taken, and I guess we'll see what happens, how many lawsuits come out of this.
And in Hoboken, we have a couple of places trying to open that are in the middle of a lawsuit, so they can't open. Bayonne, it's the same thing. I have, first of all, the real estate that they offered us for a green zone is owned by two people, and one of them doesn't like cannabis. So that leaves one area. And now there's a lawsuit in Bayonne because more people want to be in the green zone. So guess what? Nobody can open. That's what I'm talking about until the lawsuit's finished. So we're not there yet where we're enforcing some old school law to try to help people get open. But there's definitely a problem when people are approved and you can't open up in the only places available.
So limits a lot.
Right.
Yeah. That depends.
It can't open.
But yeah, I mean, I think it'll also be interesting just in the next year to see, how these companies find funding, and if the feds would open up the law federally, it would help out a lot, to make the movement a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Just because the banks can't do anything.
Right.
So, and it would help. I mean, I think it would help the economy as a whole, not just as in like New York or California where these things are legal.
Yeah.
I think if you obviously the more money you get moving, the stronger the economy.
I totally agree. I think some people don't recognize that there's certain credit unions you can deal with. There's a couple of banks that are okay with cannabis, but on a federal level, that's an issue. And you have to be very careful where you put your money, which is also why I think it's so important to have some sort of cannabis attorney to talk to if you're trying to get into the cannabis field, because people don't recognize the issues that could arise.
Yeah, I don't understand why there's a lot of my clients that I've had to, explain to them the importance of an attorney and that it's not just someone taking your money.
I mean, in business in general, right? Like we're supposed to say if you're in a business, because commercial real estate deals with the businesses more than a residential agent. And a lot of agents who want to get into the cannabis don't recognize the business side of it that you need to know and the people you should refer to if you have that sort of client, right? So they just don't recognize the need for business related attorneys and cannabis related attorneys.
Right. So, and a lot of my clients don't trust her.
Right.
So it's like, when you're trying to explain to them, no, they're actually there to help you, it's a hard sell.
I mean, that's a juggling thing that we kind of talked about a little bit before. Like we're dealing, especially us, right? Like background, it's easy to understand why they wouldn't trust the attorney. And at the same time, trying to say, yes, but they're going to help us now. It feels like you're kind of just throwing everything you got, but you really don't have a choice, right? Like if we want to work within the system, we have to work with the people who are working within the system. So you have to, as like us, if we can talk to the lawyers and the council people and every municipality has different professionals who work there, and at the same time get someone who used to be in the hood selling weed to actually have a legitimate business and conjoin the two, it's a special skill set, right?
It's also like explaining to them that, these people are, obviously more like we can all look over the law and all that, but like we're not attorneys. And like we're not, like I tell them I'm not supposed to give, legal advice because I'm not an attorney. The only thing I tell them is the best thing to do is to get like an attorney that specializes in this. It's a dangerous game to get into without.
Yeah, sure. Because that's the other thing that people don't recognize, like social equity. It's for the community. It's for the betterment of these more, it's not the best commercial area for something in New Jersey anyways, like that. Like for instance, you think commercial, you want to be on the main strip. Green zones are not on the main strip. So you want to be in the best part of the green zone. The thing you have to recognize is you're the only cannabis shop in town. People are going to go to you regardless. You know what I mean? But that thought process isn't there because they're not doing it every single day. Same thing with them trying to recognize that people are helping you in the attorneys specifically on a council level, just trying to get in with what you're going to do for the community. It has to be put into your application, and people don't understand that. That's what helps get you in, even though, I'm not able to get you open yet.
Right, which is the whole problem. Right. Now, as far as what's going on with regular real estate in New Jersey right now, with
it's really interesting. Like residential real estate had this like lull. People weren't going crazy. Then there were just a sudden push all over again after the holidays. I think with the numbers changing so much, people get excited and they're trying to see what they can do. There's still plenty of homes that are over asking by 40, 50, 60. I mean, I have one of them that just happened to. It was gone within 7-8 days. It's a single family home. You usually hear about that more with two families, multi-families, people trying to invest their money. So for Jersey, it's still insane. Commercial has never let up for us. It never became like New York. There were some lulls, but nothing as intense as over here. Yeah, how about New York?
New York isn't really, I mean, there's a little bit of it's not, I would say, a grind and halt or anything like that. I mean, it's not as insane as it was a year and a half ago, where, you may not even see your apartment before your buyer rented it. And that's that serious. People were putting in bids that we're not even seeing it.
Yeah.
Just by pictures or, online.
And that's what, there's certain markets, because I'm in Hoboken, that's how it is. It's still like that. Like, it's such a rat race that people have to go over asking, and the rental market's insane. But just like everything else in Jersey, there's pockets of that. It's not everywhere.
Yeah, I think in New York, I mean, there's still deals to be had, but it's not in Manhattan, and especially there's, it's still where there's people competing, but it's not as bad as it was. It's still pretty crazy though. Not like anything that's going on down in Florida right now. But yeah, it's real estate. It's New York City, and it's usually, I don't want to jinx anything and say it's a bubble, but even during the last recession, it was definitely nowhere near hit as other states.
Yeah.
That I had seen, where there was whole neighborhoods that were like in bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's, we talk about that a little bit because it's just different here. There's so much more people. People need things. Other than the shutdown that we had, I don't see anything not moving. It's just what you decide to focus on, I guess. And that's the thing with commercial and cannabis. You're kind of involved in a little bit of everything, so you could stay busy enough. Homes have that, that loan.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always believe that real estate is like the safest investment. Even down in Florida, for instance, when they did have the big crash, I mean, they did come back, and it was, the issue that they're having now is kind of like they're getting to the tip of the bubble there for it to pop. And it's a lot higher than it was as far as pricing wise, like back then, in 2008, 2009, the house was maybe over market by by $50,000, say. So like if a house is supposed to be 150, like an entry level, like a 3.2, and it was at 200, maybe 250, so maybe 100,000. Now a house that's supposed to be, say, 300,000 is 600,000. Yeah. So when that bubble hits, it's going to be a serious bubble.
Yeah, nobody's looking at, for whatever reason, at that at all.
Oh no, there's too much.
Yeah.
But then as far as the interest rate thing, really, I mean, it does affect New York. I think eventually we'll see an effect of it if it continues to go up. I don't think it's gone up high enough right now that as far as like luxury sales, it's going to slow down luxury sales. I don't see that happening. But if it does continue to go up, people will step back and say, okay, this is a good investment in this area, and try to find a cheaper deal somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah.
But as far as other places, like what I saw in Florida a couple of weeks ago when I was down there, there's already there's a huge difference in the market. There's a big slowdown down there. And the prices of houses are starting to go down. And the thing that really was an indicator was the houses aren't selling as quick, so the owners started, buying down the interest rates for the buyers. About that started a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of, not to the bottom yet, I don't think.
I mean, that's happening here in Jersey too, especially for the homes sitting on the market longer, which is a little crazy because the homes that are sitting on the market longer aren't necessarily worse. It's just there's a lot of new agents and people are scared and they don't know how to explain it properly, I think. So their next step is the buy down program, right? Which is to anybody who is worried about the interest rate, sounds like a great thing. And it could be, depending on what
the interest rate is.
Right, that's what I'm
And then
saying.
you have what ends up happening is if they buy it down for 2 or 3 years, all you're doing is just kicking the can down the road. That's kind of the same situation we were in 2009. It's just the seller's doing it for the bank. So it's just another balloon.
Yeah. Agreed. But again, no one explains it thoroughly and can't see 2-3 years down the road. You're just worried about right now, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess people will figure, I'll just refinance out of it, or
Yeah, but we don't, right?
so who knows what's gonna happen.
Hey.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 6 months. I mean, some places, some of the banks are saying, we've seen the worst of it. Some banks are like, brace. We haven't even got to the start of it.
Yeah.
So it is weird because there's different things affecting it. So especially down like a place like Florida where they have a lot of different things going on at the same time.
Right.
With people moving, there's a lot of people that, because of the insurance going up,
Which is crazy though, like a whole other mortgage or a whole other rent, or it just in addition to what you're already paying, all of a sudden it's crazy, especially to be in Florida for the amount of money that it costs. You're not expecting to hit another.
Most people tend to buy at the top of the top of what their
Budget is.
Right. So when you're at that price and you got your mortgage at $3,000 and you say your maintenance was $1,500, now your maintenance is $3,000, and so now you're really like, people are like scared. I saw a thing, an article the other day where it was a building with doubling the maintenance, and there was people like, I think there was, out of the 75 units, I think like 30 went on the market the day they're from home. Yeah, in that building, because people know they can't afford it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then they were like saying that they don't know where they're gonna move. Like they have to move out of. This is South Florida, and so saying that they'd have to move further north, because even the Keys now are super.
Wow.
So it's interesting. It's gonna be an interesting time for both cannabis and real estate.
In general, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ride the wave is all I keep thinking. Like, just we'll figure it out. We'll maneuver. That's the only thing we can do, right? Like,
so do you have any, like, what advice would you give, in closing, to someone wanting to get into the cannabis industry and or start investing in real estate?
so a couple of things. First, ask questions. I think a lot of times people want to pretend that they know everything, and you go into a conversation and then you want to act like you know more. Just let the professional that you're talking to kind of guide you. And if you have a question that professional doesn't know, and you either pick up on it or talk about it, like say it aloud.
Whatever they'll pay.
100%. Yes. But that's number one. Number two, find the people in the field, especially cannabis. Like a commercial agent can help you in a business sense, on a lease, looking for commercial space, where to go, the type of things inside the commercial space. A cannabis person knows the laws with zoning, knows where to put you, knows the future of where your trajectory is. There's different things that key people. So find someone who could either lead you to the right people that you need, or because not one person knows it all, especially in cannabis, even in the business area, right? Like you need special people, professionals to do different things. So ask questions. That would be my advice to everyone. Just ask questions. If you don't feel comfortable, figure out why you don't, and then look for someone else, or, just ask more people.
Work with people that you trust.
Right.
And know, because that'll make you feel comfortable as a client, and as far as you having to build the trust with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have any other questions for us, she can be reached at.
So on Instagram, homegirl Heidi, and I have also you can reach me at phone number, text, and you can put my number at the bottom.
And of course, I'm the 420 Realtor. Hit me up on the DMs.